What's up, everyone, and welcome back. You are watching another episode of Well-Rounded Individual. I'm your host, Adam Schindler. Guys, if you're watching right now and you haven't already, please do me a favor and click that subscribe or follow button below. It really just helps me to grow this show and continue to get better as a podcaster. But coming back at you with another guest this week. This is episode 16 total, and I've got a treat for you. I have a total badass in here. She is a IBJJF World Champion, a black belt in jiu-jitsu. She coaches some of the top bikini pros in the world and is the head coach of the Strip Nutrition. Everyone, please welcome to the show, Talia Marie Vaughan.
Hey, guys.
Lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good. So, I've just named so many things that you have accomplished and things that you do. You embody what the name of the show is. And with that being said, the first question I always ask every guest is, what does that mean to you? What are some attributes or some things that a well-rounded individual has?
I think the main thing for me is never stop learning. And that can mean multiple things. That can mean like studying, reading, but that can also mean by trying new things. And I feel like for me, that's kind of what I've done is I went from jiu-jitsu to powerlifting to CrossFit, and it made me a better coach. It taught me different lessons along the way. So I feel like if you're open to learning, whether you're actually physically doing something new, like trying jiu-jitsu if you've never tried it, or trying CrossFit and, hitting your chest on the bar, trying to figure out how to do a kipping pull-up, whatever it is, don't be afraid to fail a couple of times, because at the end of the day, you're going to learn something new that will make you a little bit more well-rounded at the end of the day. So
I love it. Yeah, it goes back to range, right? Have you ever heard of that book, Range?
I have not, actually.
Who's the author? I'll have to look it up, but I'll send it to you. But basically the idea behind it is they talk about how today's athletes are so specified, they're one sport athletes and things like that. Mm-hmm. There's been studies and different data that says that a person who has range and does a little bit of everything in different seasons has more success overall in the long run, because it teaches you so much more. Mm-hmm. And you're just adding tools to a toolbox, right? Exactly. If you just got one toolbox full of a bunch of really good tools, but it's the same tool, what happens when things change?
Exactly. I agree 100%. And I never wanted to be stagnant, after competing most of my life in jiu-jitsu, and COVID hit, and not only did COVID hit, but I had switched jiu-jitsu teams at the time. I didn't know what I was going to do with my jiu-jitsu career anymore. I wasn't sure if I was going to compete under a different team. Well, we weren't even training jiu-jitsu at the time anyways. It was during COVID. So I didn't know what I was. And that's actually when I started diving into my personal training business, because I had the time, I had the means, and that was a new endeavor for me to become more well-rounded. I didn't just teach jiu-jitsu now. I was also able to teach people how to lift correctly regardless of their goals. And I think my goal in life is just to continue doing that until I'm unable to. So
yeah, absolutely. And being dynamic, right? So just being dynamic. And I think that COVID really helped a lot of people doing that, right? So you either continue down the path that COVID is taken away from you, or you're forced to pivot, and you have to find a new way. So it was really good in that area, because imagine it never happened. You continue down the same path. What would life even be like right now?
Nowhere near where I'm at now, that's right? For sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. And with COVID, I hate to say this because I know people lost their lives, they lost friends, they lost family members to COVID, but personally speaking, it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. I was lucky enough to still live with my parents at the time, so I didn't have to stress too bad about bills, but I didn't get unemployment during COVID like everybody else was, because I was working part-time at a restaurant while I was part-time starting my personal training business under the table. So I couldn't use that to get unemployment. So I remember doing Instacart during COVID, and I lived with my parents, and they were freaking out. They're like, as soon as I would get home, shower, put the clothes in the dirty laundry. I was out there when this pandemic was going on, but I needed to do that in order to survive and pay my bills. And then I also took advantage of having a home gym, and I started working out 2 times a day. and recording it all and posting it on Instagram.
Ooh,
So by the time that the gyms opened back up June 1st of 2020, I actually had a full roster of clientele already from just posting my quarantine workouts. Yeah. So I am grateful for COVID.
Yeah, you took full advantage of that time.
And the funny is, I don't think I realized what I was doing until the benefits came in. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I made $4,000 this month as a personal trainer. Like at that time, I never would envision making that much money training people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like your first month too.
It was. It was June 1st to July 1st of 2020. I was like, no way. Like this is possible.
Yeah.
And it was because of COVID that I discovered that it was. So.
Yeah. No, I can completely relate to you on that front as well. Like I kind of miss COVID a little bit sometimes, or at least the lockdown, it was so much fun because I did get unemployment at the time. But yeah, I remember I was in a gym as well at the time, and I was just like, well, I guess like I thought it was going to be 2 weeks long. So I was like, I'm just going to run every day for the next 2 weeks and like motivate people to stay active during this time. Mm-hmm. Well, that turned 2 weeks of 10Ks turned into 116 straight days. And that changed my life because it like opened up my brain to know and think that like, oh, like I can push beyond this, because there were days that I didn't want to, but I had like promised myself that I would do it. And I'd never done that many days in a row before without taking a rest day, because I always thought I needed to rest.
Yeah.
And of course you need to rest. I don't want to. Guys, rest. Definitely rest. But it opened my brain and like to what I'm capable of.
Yeah.
Even more. Not that like I never need a rest day, but just like what else can I do?
Exactly.
That I previously thought that I couldn't.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So that's totally awesome. Yeah. So how did that snowball from there? Like,
at the gym that I was at the time, I was around a lot of my jiu-jitsu training partners. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where my clientele started. Well, it started with my mom. Hi, Mom. Yeah. And then it kind of trickled into me training a lot of the top grapplers in the world, Felipe Andrew and his now wife, Leticia. They were some main training partners for me, and I had the pleasure of training them, strength and conditioning. And I trained some MMA fighters who are now in the UFC, which is so cool to see. Yeah. Like I was training them when they were amateurs in the sport, dope, right? And now they're in the UFC. And it was such a small part of my career, but it's just still seeing that, it made me really happy that like I played a role in your success, and thank you for allowing me to. So, but then I realized if I want to make more than $4,000 a month, respectfully, fighters aren't the best clientele.
No, not at all.
Not that I didn't enjoy training them, because I enjoyed training the MMA fighters and the jiu-jitsu competitors, obviously, because that's where I came from. It was nostalgic for me. I wanted to take my process that was so successful for me and apply it to all of these different competitors in their own way, and what worked best for them. Because again, no program is created equal. We're all different. So it not only allowed me to learn programming and per person, but it also allowed me to learn that no programming is the same. Everyone needed different programming. But then I realized if I wanted to expand a little bit, I needed to get a little bit different clientele. So then I started diving a little bit more into just regular schmegular everyday folk that need to become healthier. And obviously there are challenges training professional athletes, and there are challenges training the regular schmegular average Joes. But it was weird. I ended up leaving the first gym that I was at. And every gym that I've been at, I've said it's a blood. Like there's a reason I was at that gym. I went to another independent contractor trainer gym. And this gym was the first time I was around the bodybuilding community. And it was so foreign to me. I'm sure you can attest to this. You grow up around combat athletes, some of the best fighters in the world. At one point, you were considered one of the best fighters in the world. And then you walk into a gym and there are women in like sparkly bathing suits, and you're like, well, I don't know what I just walked into. Yeah. Like, no judgment, but it was just foreign to me.
Yeah.
And then they started noticing the way I trained. And then I got approached by one that was like, hey, like I'm in my off season, and a lot of my feedback from the judges is I just need to grow muscle. And in my head, I'm like, I can do that. So then I started with my first one, and then that first one gave me another one. And the second one, I no longer work with her anymore, but our process was incredible. She was a pro at the time already, and she was given feedback that she needed to put on more muscle. So I programmed for her as if I would anyone else that needed more muscle. And she put the muscle on, and this is where genetics also come into play. Her genetics were unreal. She put on muscle. She grew like a weed. So it definitely, it brought some attention to me as a coach because of how fast she did put on muscle. And then she had her first pro win. And in order to qualify for the Olympia, you have to win a pro division. So we were like, oh my gosh, you're going to Olympia. Like, that's insane. And her very first Olympia, I was still working with her. She took 6th place out of 50 something girls. I think maybe that year there was 60. I don't remember. But she took 6th place her very first Olympia. And all I needed to do was figure out how to grow, like put muscle on her. But then it got tricky because they developed this size that the judges love. And then the judges start getting nitpicky. They're like, more glutes, but no more quads. So then that's when, as a coach, the programming had to really be intricate. We had to pick movements that there was minimal quad engagement and mostly glute. But that's the thing about the bodybuilding community and like people that coach in bodybuilding, they don't realize that every movement, there's never a single muscle that's working. There could be a muscle that's working more than another one, but there was never a single one. So it was tricky for me to not only program this for these people, but also explain, hey, your quads are going to turn on for a second. Like, you physically can't do this movement if your quads don't help you. And that was kind of one of the challenges, was like, hey, don't freak out. Just because your quads turn on doesn't mean you're going to grow into Mr. Olympia. Like, we're going to be okay, you know? And then once I started my career with her, my path with her, the rest of them kind of started trickling in, and had people dropping in out of town and saying, hey, I'm in town. You train so-and-so. I want to drop in and train with you. Sick. And it was so cool. Like, I was like, you want to train with me on your Vegas vacation on a Saturday? Like, absolutely, come on in. It was just, it felt surreal, and it made me happy that I sit at a computer and I figure out literal just exercises and rep schemes for these people. And this is what makes or breaks their bodybuilding careers.
That's
and
cool.
It's such a simple concept, but when like applied correctly, I mean, it made their careers, and I'm happy I was able to play a role in that.
Yeah, and as you were talking right there, I'm just thinking in my head, like, how you're utilizing like one over the other and what to focus on. And because when you just do a movement without that coaching, it's completely different, right? So it's almost like a science within a science.
It is. And I honestly would have probably remained ignorant to that if it wasn't for me working with bikini competitors. Recently, I've taken on some so what a lot of people didn't understand in the beginning is, because these competitors, they have prep coaches. And what that means is they have a coach that tells them everything, what to eat, what to drink, how much cardio. And then I was just the strength coach that worried about the training. Then I wanted to, again, become a well-rounded individual. And I was like, how the process of prepping someone is so intricate and scientific. I want to figure it out. And so I took on a few of my very first full-time prep clients, where I not only did their programming and trained them in person, but I also did the diet. I did the cardio. And, you know, I told them too, I said, hey, you're my guinea pig. Like, and I will ask questions. You know, I had some of the best coaches, prep coaches around that I could ask advice with, or two. And, you know, two of them that, you know, we work with them at, not Self-Made, the Strip Barbell. Savannah was my very first wellness prep client. And wellness is a whole different category that I've officially determined is my favorite category, because as much as bikini competitors are willing to train hard, that has to stop at a certain point. And then the freakouts of growing my quads or my back or my shoulders too much kind of take over. With the wellness girls, they just need to grow, and it's nonstop, which means they need to train heavy all of the time. And that is definitely down my alleyway. I like to train hard myself, and I like to train my clients hard as well. So the wellness girls are definitely something that I discovered. I was like, oh, I like this. Yeah. But the process of their diet and peak week and peaking them show day, making sure they look full but not too soft. Like it was such an intricate process that I'm still trying to figure out to this day, that I'm still trying to perfect. Yeah. But Savannah won her first show. Sierra won her first show and qualified for nationals her first show. Nice. And then Savannah won first again and also qualified for nationals. And it's just watching their success was almost as good as watching my own. And I only say almost because winning a world title in jiu-jitsu is unmatched. Yeah. But other than that, watching them accomplish that through their hard work, because man, I mean, that takes a lot to be able to do that kind of sport. It was definitely a very proud moment and made me realize why I do this for a living and why I'm a coach.
That's amazing. And I love how you said it's a process, right? Because you're just going to continue to get better by learning, trying. The thing is, you've got a good recipe because you're already winning, right? And then when you win and you notice and you make adjustments and you take what could have done better and you continue to build, you're just going to be able, that's just going to expand your reach, expand your growth, expand your ability to take everyone there.
And that's kind of my goal, is to be able to not turn someone away if I don't know how to program for them. I have my very first powerlifting prep client competing in next Saturday, actually. And my fiance is also a strength coach, and that's kind of what his specialty is programming for, well, he has plenty of them, but what started him was his own powerlifting career, and then he became a powerlifting coach, and he's very good at it. So I looked at him, I said, hey, like, so-and-so wants to do a powerlifting meet. I've never prepped someone for a powerlifting meet before. I kind of have the movement ideas, but the percentages and the progression of those percentages, I don't know. Will you help me? So I'm lucky I have like a walking encyclopedia in my house.
Coach. Yeah, that's good.
Which helps because it does make me a better coach figuring all this out. And it's her very first powerlifting meet. Although she may not have expectations, me as a coach, I always do. I have goals for her in my head.
Yeah.
And you know, it'll only make me better for the next powerlifting client that comes. I want to be able to help whoever needs help in whatever facet of fitness needs help.
Yeah, so I want to go back to something you said as well, like when you were in that answer, and it's something that that I've always noticed about you, even back in the self-made days. I would watch you and I would think this. So you said you like to train hard, and you like to train your girls hard, and you make them work. Like, that's the thing, like, that I notice. Like, they lift heavy, they lift hard. You can see them. They want to fall down sometimes, which is really cool to see. Like, just like as a guy looking over, just watching like a group of females get after it. I love seeing that. But you have such like a good balance of getting people to work until they drop, but also giving them like grace and keeping them in love with you. And how do you do that? What are some things, like, you are really good at knowing when to push the gas and when to let your foot off a little bit. Does that come from just a lifetime of experience of training and being pushed, learning from coaches that pushed you too much, possibly? Tell me.
Definitely it was jiu-jitsu. All of it's, I've had so many jiu-jitsu coaches. And even before I left Gracie, I was Gracie Umaida for 16 years. So within Gracie Umaida, if you don't know, it's like McDonald's. They're everywhere, right? They're all over the world. So within Gracie Umaida, I had so many different coaches. I had the coaches that didn't push hard enough. I had the coaches that pushed too hard. But those coaches that pushed too hard, I always would lean towards them, because when they would push me that hard, I noticed I would see more success when competing. When I was giving an inch, meaning not push that hard, I would take that mile. And not even like on purpose. It was just, jiu-jitsu is such a hard sport. So if your coach gives you that day where you can kind of like get away with things, I'm going to take it. Yeah. But, you know, Leticia Hibiero is the head instructor at Gracie South Bay. And she has absolutely changed my life. If she watches this podcast, I hope you know you absolutely changed my life. She is aside from my big brother, she is the best jiu-jitsu coach I've ever had, because that was her. She is 9-time black belt IBJJF World Champion, and she no longer competes, and she just creates world champions. And I remember one time, it was the weekend before Worlds, the weekend before I won Worlds. I was a brown belt. I was sparring with one of her black belts, and we headbutted really hard. Like, and usually it happens, you know, you've trained jiu-jitsu, you just keep going. But this one was bad. We headbutted hard to where I like froze. And she walks up, I have a giant hematoma like on my eye. It's sticking out. And I was like, oh, that kind of hurt. She walks up to me, she looks at me, and then she pushes it to spread it out. And she goes, you have 3 minutes left in this round. And we kept going. Yeah. And a lot of people were like, oh my God, that's crazy. No, because of literally 1 week later, I won a world title. And that's because that grit that I was giving and expected to give, it showed in my performance. So I think I subconsciously do that with my clients. I know when it's too much, but I also know when it's not enough. And luckily, especially the prep clients, the wellness girls that I push that hard, they've become my best friends. I mean, they're my bridesmaids in my wedding, you know, and they know how I am and they know my expectations of them. And when those expectations start to fall, they know I'm going to be sitting right there to call them out on it. And that's why they're my best friends, because one, I would expect that to be reciprocated if I was on the other end of that, but also because they know that I'm actually doing it to make them better in what they're trying to do. Because I knew when Leticia was doing that to me, that's what she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself yet. And it worked. I got a world title from it. And these girls won their very first shows because of it. So that's kind of why I do that. And also, this is going to sound silly, but teaching kids jujitsu is another reason I feel like I can be, I don't want to use the word mean, maybe just stern and I push them hard, but they keep coming back. I remember teaching kids classes with my brother, and teaching children how to fight each other, it's a whole different patience and it's a lot. So we do have to be very strict with them, or kids can get hurt, you know? And we were mean. Like, I remember leaving kids class sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, I was kind of mean to so-and-so today. I hope they come back. Next day, they're like, hi, Coach T. Like, always so excited. They were always the most excited to see my brother and I, even though we were the meanest to them. But that's because they took these lessons, not only in jiu-jitsu and became great competitors, but now we know a lot of these kids now that they're older and they are incredible. They're incredible teenagers, young adults. Some of them are in college now. And seeing them, I'm like, wow, I played a role in how amazing this kid turned out. And I will always do that, no matter how old the person is, not just with children, but if it's my friends my age, you're going to get that too. Because I know it's going to benefit you at the end of the day. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. The hardest coaches are always the ones that like you kind of look back with with that fondness, you know, because what's the goal of being there? To be the best, or to get better and to improve. And if there's too much leeway, especially in a competition zone, someone's going to fill that gap and get better than you. What about the everyday person though? How is that like? Because there is a significant like switch that you have to like change when you do them back to back. Someone who's competing seriously to someone who wants to get healthier, and their goal is to like just be able to not get tired all day or, you know, something like that.
I think for that is just, I give the same demeanor in my expectations. You hire me as a coach because you've seen what I can do with some of my clients, but they just get more patience from me. I have this one client, and just because I didn't ask anyone permission, I won't give names or anything like that. But I've been training her since 2021, I believe. And she was everyday client, just wanted to lose weight. She is now in 2024, 5 pounds away from her weight goal in 2024. And her weight goal was not anything crazy. It's something that could have been achieved in 6, 7, 8 months. But because of the discipline that it took for her to change her lifestyle to do it, it took years for her to finally click. And I could have easily just let her go or let someone go because they weren't giving that same push as my wellness competitor or as my pro bikini competitor or as a grappler or an MMA fighter. I could have easily done that. But at the end of the day, I felt like, without sounding entitled, I felt like they needed me. They needed that patience from me along with the tools. I gave them everything. And I was always constantly reminding them like, hey, so-and-so, I've given you every tool that I have. I have no gatekeeping here. You have all my secrets. You just have to apply them and you will see success. So I think I've learned over the years, because I wasn't always perfect with it. It was a hard transition, you know, and I'm sure my friends listening to this are going to laugh because they know that I am a bit of a hard ass on them when it comes to coaching and maybe even as a friend. But over the years, I feel like I've developed a little bit more patience with them. The process is still exactly the same, and my expectations are exactly the same, but I just give them more grace and patience because, you know, maybe we need to celebrate a small win. You know, you tracked your food every single day this week. That's a win. You lost 2 pounds this week. That's a win. Now your goal this week is to keep it off. Don't put it back on. You got 2 pounds down. Let's go. Right. But I still will have no problem calling out those day-to-day people because that's the coach that they hired.
Yeah.
Have I lost clients because of this personality, this demeanor I have as a coach? Absolutely. I have. And it's okay. I have no hard feelings about it. I'm not that's why there's so many coaches out there, because there's a coach for you. And if I wasn't the coach for you, that's okay. And I wish you the best. And I do hope that you find whatever success that you're looking for in your health and fitness goals. And I do hope that you achieve it with somebody else. Just because you're not achieving it with me doesn't mean I don't hope that you achieve that. Yeah. And that's okay.
That's a great mindset to have too, because this is the thing that I say sometimes when I talk to people, and I'm like, yeah, like I'm not for everyone, and everyone's also not for me. You know, a lot of times, like as a coach, you see like, you know, I'm sure that you've seen coaches before that just are like, they're casting such a wide net. They're bringing in anyone that will work with them. I don't want to do that. Like I want to work with everyone who works well with me, but there are certain like times when you work with someone and you know, like, oh, this isn't going to be a good fit.
Yep.
And that's totally okay. It goes both ways.
Yeah.
And it's important to be able to recognize that, because they can absolutely achieve goals with someone else with a different approach, because sometimes people just need that.
Yeah.
You know, I can get anyone to achieve a goal, right? But maybe someone else is going to be better for you.
Yeah.
And be able to be humble enough to be able to say that out loud and to direct them in the right way, because that's what's going to be best for them. But also, it's good that you don't need anything. You got plenty also, you know.
I am very lucky.
Yeah.
I am very lucky.
That's excellent. I want to, there's another thing that I wanted to ask, and because we talked about, right? So your clients that were just, it's almost to the weight goal 4 years later. So you just enacted extreme patience with this person. If they're almost there, it's taken a while, but slowly but surely you're getting there. Yeah. So this client obviously has played the long game. You played the long game with this person. How do you keep this person engaged, coming consistently, and continuing to work towards that goal when they don't necessarily see the progress?
I think not all trainers, but I feel like a lot of trainers don't sit down and write specific programming for their clientele. I do. Every Sunday, I spend 6-7 hours at my computer between writing meal plans and programs. And the way I write programs is they're in 4-week blocks. So for the 4 weeks, you're going to see the same movements, maybe with different modalities added to it, trying to increase on weight, practice progressive overload. After that 4 weeks, depending on how many days a week they work out, they either go into a deload, which most of my in-person clients don't need to deload. If you train twice a week, you don't need to deload. But after that 4th week, they know now. Especially someone like her who's been training with me for so long, they know how I operate. So they know after that 4th week, they're going to get a whole new set of movements, and they have no idea what it is. And I think that definitely helps. Also, even though I know what this particular person needs programmed, I do try my best to ask my clients, what do you like to do? What are some of your favorite movements that we've done together? And I will put those in there also. Will I also put things that they absolutely hate? Yes, because that means they need them. Yeah. But it's a happy balance between putting the things that they need and putting a couple things that they also want there, because then they look forward to coming to their training sessions. Now, let me tell you, sometimes I ask myself this question, especially with this particular client, because I have lost patience a handful of times. I'm sure she can attest to that. But I'm like, how does so-and-so keep coming? They show up and they keep coming. Well, this is why, because she played the long game and it worked. And now that she's seeing all this progress, she told me actually just like a month ago, she's like, I don't really think I'm ever going to stop training with you. And I love that. my goal as a trainer is, hey, if you want me forever, you got me.
That's like the ultimate win.
It is. Client retention, I think sometimes we're too focused on accumulating new clientele and not focused enough on retaining our clients. And I'm very proud to say I have very good client retention. I have clients from 2020 that before the when I was part-time doing this, still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that plays a big role in clients sticking around, is watching that I'm doing what I can to keep them.
Yeah, grass is greener where you water it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's my favorite too, because not only are you just like achieving long-term success, and like that's the thing, but you develop like these like relationships with these people that otherwise may not have happened. You know, like in any other realm or any other atmosphere. Yeah. Maybe wouldn't have happened. But you develop these relationships, and you know their family, and like you have inside jokes, and, and like it's so cool to be able to do that. It's like dating, right? Like when you're dating, like you have to learn like a whole new person all the time. Yeah, that's exhausting.
It's exhausting. I come home exhausted.
It's nice to have just like a whole group of clients that are there for the long run.
Yeah, and you know what they like to talk about, and you know, I will look at my schedule the night before and be like, oh, I have so and so, I can't wait to tell them about this from this weekend, you know, and then vice versa, like, dude, I gotta tell you what happened this weekend. Like all of my clients are my friends, and which is a slippery slope sometimes when it comes to business things, but at the same time, I wouldn't have it any other way because it makes me, sometimes I'm like, this is my job. This is what I do full time. And I'm like dying of laughter, like in between their sets, talking about just shenanigans that happened over the weekend. Like I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, it's the best.
It is.
Yeah. That is so cool. So then you've like basically, and I kind of want to go back to like your origin story too. Like, so I know we talked about, we quickly got into the transition away from jiu-jitsu, and I don't want to make like a whole like half an hour about jiu-jitsu, but I just think it's like, you're an anomaly in like today's world of like, how do I say this? Non-Brazilians who did jiu-jitsu when it wasn't cool to do jiu-jitsu. Non-Brazilian females who did jiu-jitsu in a world where, like, when it wasn't cool. So you started training in 2003, 7 years old, your whole entire life, which, I mean, knowing who you are and like seeing how structured you are and like how you operate and do things, like I'm not surprised at all, because I come from that world too, of like being a child that competed my whole life, and we kind of all have like that same similar like mentality. Yeah. Because we went through really hard things when we were kids. Yeah. And I don't want to go through like the whole like jiu-jitsu, like, because you learned a lot, but what do you think that's translated to life the most?
Man, if I were to pick, because obviously I can be here all day telling you all the things that have benefited me in jiu-jitsu. Like, I know it sounds cliche, but I don't know who I would be if I didn't train jiu-jitsu my whole life. Like, I don't know. But I think the three main things, one is work ethic. You know, you can't become a world champion without not just trying, but pushing yourself past a limit you didn't even know was there. I mean, I would take a month off of my part-time job and live in San Diego and train with the best female competitors in the world. And I lost way more than I won. If I actually submitted someone in a day, it was a good day. Like, it was rare. Getting beat up hours and hours on end not only teaches you patience, but going through that and then seeing it pay off by winning a world title, like, oh, so if I work really hard and endure all of the trials and tribulations that come with working this hard, I can accomplish what I want. And I think that translated into me starting my business. You know, I mean, I started a business during 2020 where people were losing their businesses because of it. And it was scary, but I told myself, just keep trying. You know, you didn't become it took me 15 years to win a world title and get my black belt. Like, I wasn't in it for the instant gratification. I was in it with, I can do something with this, just give it time. And I did, and it's been successful. It also taught me, and this is a big one, is respect. I respect everyone that, of course, is respectful to me and the people I love. But respect is something that I feel like with the younger generation, not everybody, because I have met younger, individuals that are not like this, but I feel like it is not something you see very often anymore. And there's no basic manners and yes, sir, no, sir, excuse me, thank you so much, have a great day, how are you today? And those are things that I learned, one, from my absolutely amazing parents, because I'm very lucky I have an amazing mom and dad, but also from jiu-jitsu. I mean, if you said hello incorrectly to a black belt, you're in trouble. If you, if you ask a higher belt to roll, you're in trouble. Like, these things, they sound really extreme, but they did translate into life. I feel like I know how to treat people and interact with people respectfully because of it. And lastly, discipline in any facet. We all lose it sometimes. I definitely have. I'm definitely, I'm guilty of the whole yo-yo weight. When you cut weight your whole life and then you realize you don't have to do that anymore. Yeah. Oh man. And my brother and I are both victims of that, because my brother actually was a full-time competitor before I was. My brother started training jiu-jitsu before I did, and he's the reason I started training. But we both kind of suffered that same, like, oh, we're not full-time competitors. I can have Fruity Pebbles. Oh, game on. Yep. Right. But that discipline that I learned from jiu-jitsu and to be successful as a jiu-jitsu competitor, it definitely, an overall life, and making sure I don't go to bed without responding to this kind or this kind or this kind, or, oh, it could be, we went to the UNLV game here in town about a couple weeks ago, and we didn't get home until like 11 p.m. because we were stuck in traffic. And while we were stuck in traffic, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to write so-and-so's meal plan. They paid their invoice today, and I told them they'd wake up to a fresh new meal plan because they were in a different time zone. You bet I was sitting in the traffic in that parking lot, writing it on my phone, figuring out the macros, sending it out. Yeah. And those are things I feel like I wouldn't have learned if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu. And that's why I feel like every child, aside from the self-defense aspects of jiu-jitsu, which obviously in my opinion is number one, it's that teaching your kids those just 3 simple principles will change how they are forever. And because I know it changed me. I know it changed my brother. I mean, both my parents trained too. My mom got her blue belt and was like, leave me alone. I got my blue belt. Leave me alone. My dad was just about to get his brown belt before we left Gracie Umaida. My dad was incredible. But I see all of these principles in them too. And I can see, and now that jiu-jitsu is more mainstream, for the most part, I see the principles instilled. Like, my fiance started training maybe 3 years ago now, and I've seen changes in him that I didn't really think he needed. Yeah. But now that they're there, I'm like, oh wow, like,
he's got blue belt now too.
He does, yeah. That's he just got his second stripe on his blue belt. And I mean, he already had the disciplines from the military, from different sports that he did and growing up. But like, watching the changes that jiu-jitsu has provided, not just me but him too. Like, it's not just about the belt around the waist and the titles. Obviously, again, winning a world title is unmatched, but the lessons I've learned from that definitely carry more weight to me than the actual title itself.
That's awesome. One thing that we talked about and that you wrote to me was the identity thing. So I think in a way you've kind of like explained, without even explaining, your ability to transition and form and develop this new person, right? Or identity, right? Because coming from like, competitor to competitor, I know exactly what you mean. When everything that you are is wrapped up in your training and your performance and being that person, and then all of a sudden it's gone. It's a mental blow. Yeah. Because you're lost. And it took me a long time. You figured it out quick.
Oh, don't worry, I'm still figuring it out.
It took me so long, because I tore my ACL the second time in 2013 in the cage. And I didn't know what I did transition, went back to college, stuff immediately, right? So I was doing things, but I was still lost.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know who I was or what I was going to be or do or anything like that till probably my son came around in 2018. Then that kind of like fixed me a little bit, but also I'm still working on it too. Can you talk about that? Like what kind of mindset do you have to be able to let go of something that you identified with so much and that meant so much to you, but you now know is no longer, it can be part of you, but it's no longer what you are. How do you do that?
You know, again, like I know I made the joke that I'm still working on it, but truly like I am. And jiu-jitsu from 2003 until now, I've barely, the last year I've been on the mat a couple of times, and I love every second of it. And then I miss it. And then I go through this spiral of, I just trained, I could start competing again, but my life is so different now. When I think what helped me was I was at the top at one point. After I won a world title, got promoted to black on the podium, I immediately made a debut on UFC Fight Pass on Eddie Bravo Invitational.
Okay.
And I had a really great performance. I won my first match with, now all the cool kids call it a smother choke. But back in the day, I was just trying to take her back and she tapped. And I was like, okay. And then I lost to a 9-time IBJJF Hall of Famer, the second match. But it was such a great match. And going back to what it took for me to be at that level, I was working for somebody else. I was working a job that I didn't care about, like truly.
Yeah.
I run my own business now. And if I stopped caring, then my livelihood stops and my business falls. And I've taken so much pride in the business that I've created that I just can't do that. And I can't seem to adjust my expectations to be like, well, if you just want to compete, like, just compete. Like, you don't have to do it. But I cannot, because the way I'm wired is
all gas.
That's literally all gas, no brakes. I am all in or all out.
Yep.
Is it the best mentality to have? No. If my friend told me that, the advice I'd give her is the different advice I'm giving myself. But because I've been there, I know what it takes. I am not willing to make those sacrifices right now. I'm not saying never again. I mean, the last time I trained, my now jiu-jitsu coach Chris Engel, I'm under Cascal now. He was like, we just got to get you back out there. And I would love that. I would love it so much. But now I have a different life goal, and that's I want to build a business empire, not just with me, but with my fiance. We work together a lot in a lot of, clients projects, if you will. And I'm taking on new business endeavors. I'm working with Lululemon now. I'm a Lululemon ambassador.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And
congrats on that.
Thank you. It's unreal, which again, I feel like jiu-jitsu played a huge role in that, because that was a market that I feel like they didn't tap in very much. And I'm also a First Form Legionnaire, and I'm doing a lot with First Form, and they're doing a lot to help me with my business. And those are taking precedence on competing in jiu-jitsu. Do I miss it? Yes. Do I have a hard time every day of my life not being like, I'm Talia? I mean, I have a tattooed on my arm, for God's sake. Like, it is me. But I think after watching myself help others accomplish their fitness goals and dreams, I was like, there is a bigger purpose than me competing in jiu-jitsu. I wasn't just to win a world title. It was to host self-defense seminars, to teach the everyday mom just little things that can keep her and her family safe. Or guys. I always tell guys can come too, but you know how that goes.
They need it.
You know how that goes.
They need it. What do they say? They always say that, like, most men highly overestimate their ability to perform in a fight.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to fight.
Everyone knows how to fight until they're fighting somebody, and that's what these self-defense seminars are to teach you. Not to like teach you to go start a fight at PTs this weekend, but like to get you out of a situation that potentially maybe you're with your significant other, your kids or your friends, and you just need to get out and get safe.
Protection.
Like, that's it. Just this world is scary. And I mean, you have a son. I don't have children yet. And I still I think about it already, like what I'm going to do to make sure I'm not necessarily coddling my child, but I keep them safe from this terrible world that we live in, to be honest, but just not just the self-defense part, but like I can help people with their fitness goals. And there's so much more that I feel like I can do aside from winning titles. There's nothing wrong if that's, I mean, I know plenty of people that make a beautiful living off of competing. And like you mentioned earlier, competing and training back when jiu-jitsu was not mainstream and not popular, I could only have dreamed to watch what this sport has evolved to. I mean, two of my old training partners just competed against each other on the UFC Fight Pass just last week. I used to train with both of them full time, and these girls are phenomenal competitors. And Emilio always says, Emilio's my fiance, he always is like, you know, you trained with those girls, like that could be you. And I know it could.
Yeah.
I know it could. Some of the top girls in the world I've either competed against already or trained with.
Yeah.
And does that kind of sting sometimes? I'm like, oh, that could be me. I could be making six figures from one match. I would do that in a heartbeat, but I have too much to sacrifice now. So if someone's going through an identity crisis, I think you need to find your purpose, your overall purpose. And I feel like it doesn't have to be one thing. And for years, I thought it had to be jujitsu for me. No, you can have like a broad purpose, but in different ways.
Right.
Help someone win a bikini show, or help someone lose 20 pounds so they feel good at their wedding, or help a jiu-jitsu competitor make weight for their tournament. There's different things that you can do that fulfills your own purpose.
Right. And so a lot of what I'm hearing you say is that your ability to move on came from setting yourself up to have that option.
Yeah.
First and foremost. But also your ability to move on was enhanced by your not needing to prove anything else to yourself.
Yeah.
You knew who you were. You'd been on the top of the podium, and you're like, oh, like I don't have anything else to prove to myself or to anyone else. I could, but there are other things that can benefit my life more.
Yes, absolutely. And like, I'll tell you what, there's two things that I wish I would have accomplished before, like not competing full time. One, I would have liked to become a black belt world champion because I won it at Brown. And, you know, when you win at Brown belt, I don't know if you know this, but in IBJJF, all black belts have to qualify for worlds every year. And to do that, you have to compete in a bunch of tournaments, rack up a bunch of points and qualify. Well, if you win worlds as a brown belt, you're a shoe-in for the fall for your first black belt world. Well, I went to worlds in 2019 as a black belt. If my black belt debut, I made a weight cut I probably shouldn't have made, because I won worlds 7 months after my second shoulder surgery. I had chronic shoulder dislocations from jiu-jitsu. And I always competed at featherweight, and my surgeon, after I got cleared to start training competitively again, he had told me, he goes, I suggest that you don't make any big weight cuts. He's like, because I just don't want anything, you know, we've just fixed your shoulder again, because it's the same one. He's like, and I think a weight cut could potentially cause injury. So I went up a weight class and won worlds at that weight class at lightweight. Nice. And I was like, oh, this is my new weight class. I can lift weights, you know, it's great. Well, we went back down to feather for my black belt debut, and I pulled one of the best girls first round, which that's what happens. You're a black belt. You can get a fresh newbie black belt at the time, or you can get one of the big dogs. And I got a big dog, and I nearly had my foot broken off my body. Yeah. She's incredible. She's still doing it to people. Yeah. But when I realized that, I was like, okay, like, I wish I could have done it, but it's okay next time. And then COVID happened. And that's when the personal training business
everything transitioned.
Everything happened for that reason. I also wish that I tried to go to ADCC. I love competing in no-gi. I love to wrestle. And there are girls that wrestle. Then let me get this straight. But most of the girls that I grew up competing against always pulled guard on me. And I loved to wrestle. My brother taught me how to wrestle. I think it's fun. So I wish I would have tried to go to ADCC also. You have to either be invited or win one of the trials. And I really wish I would have tried to win a trial. But who knows? That's not a no for me. It's not off the table. Yeah. As of right now, my focus is on my business. Right. And I'm planning a wedding for next year also.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that too.
So, I mean, there's different things in life that are going on for me and my family and my friends, and that's okay. And I think that's what kind of helps me get through the whole identity crisis.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what you've done is build a beautiful life, right? You started with this competition that you were focused with, and you transitioned so well through a time when most people had no idea what to do. And you built this business that's not only providing for you very well, but building your network, building your ability to continue to grow. You're going to be getting married within the next year, which is amazing as well. And the great part is that Emilio also is in the same realm. And so you guys can, build together. Yeah. That's what everyone wants, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's find someone to build an empire with.
Yeah. I didn't know what that meant until I had it. Like every, growing up, you hear that and I'm like, I don't know, like, because I've always been.
Yeah. Like, what is that even?
Yeah. I'm like, what does that even mean? I've always been very like independent in a sense. Like my dad always used to make jokes that I would never like, he would say I would never get married. And I used to take that offensively, but no, what he meant was like, I just didn't tolerate anyone's bullshit. Yeah. Quite frankly. And also if they got in the way of what I was trying to do, what I was trying to accomplish, I just had no tolerance for that. And then I met Emilio and he was trying to do the same things. And was it like an adjustment period at first? Yeah. Because I wasn't used to being with someone that met me there and also wanted it. But then we figured it out. We meshed together.
Oh, you're running with me.
Yeah. I was like, oh, you're not against me. Like, come on, let's go. And all of these things I would have not been able, like my business, I would have not been able to accomplish without him. You think he wants to sit there and watch these bodybuilding shows for like 15 hours? No, but he's there. We call it celebrity guest star in programming sometimes. Like when I'm like, so-and-so is complaining about this. He's like, hey, I got it. Celebrity, like, let me see. Let me make something up for them, and we work together on that. And I think it's benefited both of our businesses very well. And especially now that he's doing jujitsu, because now he's starting to get more grapplers that are reaching out to him for strength and conditioning. And then I'll do their nutrition. And so we're working together. And now I truly understand what it means to be with someone and build an empire with them. And amazing. I'm lucky. I'm very lucky.
Yeah. Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy for you. Nutrition, right? When growing up, I don't want to like completely transition away from that, but like when you mentioned like that you're doing the nutrition, I realized that we hadn't really dug into that a whole lot yet. Nutrition is broad, right? I know growing up wrestling, I was cutting weight my entire life. In the 90s, we did not do nutrition. We did starve, make weight, pig out. Yep. Right? And that happened. That was pretty mainstream way to do it up until like the last 10 years. Yeah. Right? And then like I think, people started getting nutritionists and stuff, 2010-ish, stuff like that. So do you have like a wide spectrum of how you approach that? What are some principles for someone who is like, how am I supposed to eat? What are some principles that you abide by? And do you do it for like the overall wellness health of long-term and longevity? And obviously there's a different path when it comes to competition, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think for me, the reason why I clung to the nutrition aspect of fitness was because my own relationship with food was tarnished for doing what you just said, where you cut, and then you eat. And then you're like, oh, I just made this so much harder for myself. Now I have to cut this much weight again. So my biggest goal for lifestyle is sustainability, something that you can do forever. For my nutrition clients, I am a big advocate of macro tracking. Is it tedious? Yes. Is it like playing Tetris with your food? Absolutely. But at least to jumpstart creating better habits and learning how to eat things in moderation, you end up realizing you don't need to eat the whole bag of chips when you weigh out a serving of it. And you're like, oh, that's it. I mean, we can dive into all the bad dyes and all of this stuff, but I actually don't immediately do that. Most people don't mind. They don't care about red dye and they don't care about, it's okay. Like, at the end of the day, when someone comes to me and says, I want to lose 20 pounds or 30 pounds, I just need them to eat more because most of them are under eating and they're under eating the wrong things. I always tell my clients at nutrition consults, I have never had a client walk in and eat like 3,000 calories. The day that happens, I'm going to just scream from the rooftops. I'm like, oh, thank God, you're an easy one. Because typically what I have to do is I have to get them to their maintenance calories first. Their metabolism is shot because they're under eating. They don't eat enough protein. They're terrified of carbs. Carbs are the enemy, especially after 7 p.m. God forbid you eat carbs at 8 p.m. Like You know, and you and I have had specific conversations about carbohydrates. Do these things vary from person to person? Yes. Do I make sure I know that when I'm working with individuals? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in a broad scheme of things, the goal is to get them to their maintenance calories, get them eating enough protein. And then what do? They say, Tal, I lost 5 pounds and I've never ate this much in my entire life. I'm like, yeah, you're eating enough.
Yeah.
You're not starving yourself anymore. So that's the biggest
Everyone
thing.
listen to this.
You need to eat food and you need to eat a lot of it. People are terrified to eat food. And then they wonder why they never lose weight or their weight plateaus or why they even gain weight. So that's my biggest goal, is to get you eating enough protein, which there's a lot of different ways we can say this, right? It depends on your kidney function. It depends on your lifestyle, but usually it's 1 gram of protein per body weight. So if you weigh 140 pounds, eat 140 grams of protein. Simple, right? You want 80% of that to become from whole foods. So whether you eat meat or whatever the case is. And then 20% of that can be from like a protein bar or protein powder, first form particularly because it's the best. But those are the main principles that I teach first, right? I'm really big on like slow and steady, meaning the first month, I just want them to play with tracking their food. I don't expect perfection the first month from a client. I want to see that they're making efforts and trying. And if a client eventually, I kid you not, people eat like 40, 50 grams of protein a day, and it's terrifying. I've seen it. So when I see someone that weighs 180 pounds finally in the 100 grams on their tracking, I'm like, yeah, let's celebrate it, because you're in the hundreds. That's step one. You're eating more. Now our goal is to get you to 180. This is what we're going to do now. So honestly, just eating more, which 15 years ago, people would be having a heart attack hearing this, but it's the truth. Everyone undereats nowadays. So.
Yeah, that's what, especially my female clients, it is so hard to get them to eat protein.
Yeah.
And that's a baseline that I use too. I'm like, I tell them a gram. So like, I should eat 135 grams. I'm like, let's consistently get to 100.
Yes.
Once we can consistently get to 100, then we'll start working.
Yes.
And it's a good baseline, but just small steps like that really make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I mean, I don't ever have a hard time hitting my protein, but it's because I've done it for so long and I eat massive amounts of meat.
I've seen it.
Right? Yeah. So easy for me to say, right? But for others, I'm like, try this. And, making small adjustments along the way, incorporating them consistently, and then adding another adjustment on. It's a beautiful way to make progress doing it.
Yeah, literally. It's better to do it. I think you posted something on your Instagram recently. It was like, it's better to just do something every single day to progress than just be like, oh, I'll start tomorrow. Oh, okay, I'll start tomorrow. Oh, it's Wednesday, I fell off. I'll try again on Monday. Yeah. Like, it's better just every day, make a little bit of a difference. Get an extra hour of sleep. Drink 20 more fluid ounces of water than you normally do. Right? Take your vitamins.
And this is the thing, too, is that going back to tracking it, right? A lot of people, they're like, oh, 20 more ounces. Like, I don't even know how many I had total. This is the thing. Like, tedious, maybe. But I'm sure that people who don't want to do it and call it tedious have way more tedious things in their life that they do every day anyways.
Oh, absolutely.
But one thing that it does do is work. So.
Yeah, why not?
All you got to do is do it.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing to it but do it.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love it. So we've already been here. We're about 2 minutes under an hour, I think, right now. So that went by fast.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, real fast. No. When do you get married?
May 10th, 2025.
May 10th. So we got about 6 months.
Yeah.
No, 7.
A little under 7.
Under 7. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congrats on that.
Thank you. I never thought this day would come, but it's here and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah. And so I know that you're going to be super busy planning and, just doing what you do. And, as we wrap up, one thing that I wanted to talk about is just like how I see you, just like you're so structured and the way you do things. Like, I'm like, man, I should do that too. There's a lot of things that you've done that I'm like, I should do that. And I still haven't. Like, I still kind of just like, am like doing the things the way that I do them. But you're a really great example.
Thank you.
You work really hard. Anyone who's like been fortunate enough to be around you, like on a consistent basis, can see it.
Thank you.
I know that. And just the energy that you bring, I'm happy that I get to be around you on a daily basis because, you know, as much of a badass that you are, you're the sweetest person in the world.
You.
And you always like make everyone feel welcome and comfortable. And you can't walk into Barbell and see you and not be like, oh man, this place is cool.
Oh, thank you.
So I super appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me, really.
And anything else you want to talk about or add before we wrap up?
Come train at the Strip Barbell. I mean, just like how you feel about being around me, I feel like that being around all of you guys too. You train hard, Adam, and it's motivating. And the girls, they train hard and they do so much for their businesses. Like, I'm fortunate to finally be in a gym where I'm surrounded by go-getters. And if you guys want to be surrounded by go-getters, come train with us at Barbell. Yeah. You'll have a good time.
There you go. I love it. Again, thanks for being here.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know anyone who made it this far took so much away from that. Talia dropped so many gems and just so much valuable information. I know that you loved it. I appreciate you watching. Please like, subscribe, share these episodes. Growing this thing is going to allow me to continue to get better and continue to bring value and add to anyone who wants to be added to. So again, thank you for being here. We'll see you next week.